All right, we are ready for our third interview. Right now, we are going to welcome to the stage Rodney Littles.
Alyssa, thank you very much.
Hey!
How
Oh,
you
yeah.
doing?
I'm doing marvelous. How are you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful. It's a Jury Friday here in Houston, Texas.
I heard, I heard it was storming a bit. So if we hear some thunder, that's
Yeah,
what's going on.
yeah. I thought it was the trash folks, and it turns out that there's a thunderstorm going on. So,
So, Rodney, can you tell us a little bit about why you're running for the .NET Foundation Board?
so if you look at the .NET Foundation's about page, on there it says what we do, and the things that they talk about are things that are kind of near and dear to my heart. I think that the .NET Foundation is doing a lot of good. I think that if we focused and targeted certain other areas, we may be able to help bridge some of the gaps in the .NET's open source community. Some of the things that they talk about is promoting the broad spectrum of softwares available, evangelizing the benefits of the .NET platform, promoting the open source model, right? And that's really a big one for me because I think that while the foundation has great intentions, I think that we as a community need to do a better job of promoting the open source model and really getting back in touch with Microsoft and letting them know that the way that they're approaching open source is different than the way other languages are approaching it, and we should take some ideas from that so that we can build a healthier open source community. So really why I'm running is really to try and bridge the gaps between open source maintainers and consumers. There are people that are producing open source packages that are giving their spare time, their nights, their weekends to provide a leg up or standing on the backs of giants for other developers. And a lot of we see it even in the public .NET forums. Like there was one on Anti Framework Core not too long ago where somebody was very upset, didn't want to help provide any reproduction steps so that the team could help them fix the issue. And it's just like,
Right.
how can we get the consumers to understand that these people are giving their time, and while our time is valuable and we want to help, but if you can help us help you, then we can all get there together.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of open source issues and communication issues that you'd like to start tackling.
Yes, yes, that is the primary goal of why I'm running for a board position is to help bridge that gap. Like I said, I've been open source maintainer for the past several years for a project that's in the .NET Foundation, and I see some areas for improvement.
Okay. Very neat. So what is your background with the .NET Foundation?
Oh, so like I said, I've been a maintainer of the Reactive UI MVVM framework for the past 2 years.
Mm.
I did not write the open source project. I actually came in, so my case is somewhat unique. The maintainer that was maintaining was ready to step down, and had somebody not stepped in, the project would have ended up being dead because he was going through some life changes and he needed somebody to step in. He reached out to me. We had some conversations, and I was able to help with the succession of a .NET Foundation open source project. So I was able to go from a consumer to a maintainer and help understand. Oh, did we lose me?
Nope, you're still good. I was double checking.
Okay, so I was able to go from a consumer to a maintainer, and I really got a chance to see what that looks like from somebody who's never really done open source on that level to now being responsible for curating issues, responding to people's feedback, helping people in Slack channels, helping people with
Mm.
Stack Overflow posts, things that I was never planning to do, but there was a need that needed to be filled.
Yeah.
And had I not stepped in, had Glenn, the other maintainer, not stepped in, the project could have died. And
Mm.
that's a .NET Foundation project that would have fallen by the wayside, like some of the other ones that I'm seeing recently.
Mm.
So my work with the foundation has been primarily as a maintainer of a project that is in the foundation. We were one of the pilot groups for the foundation. So we've been in it a while. We've had a chance to watch the foundation mature,
Mm.
and that's kind of again why I'm here, is because there's while the foundation has provided us a lot of good things, and I will not say that they haven't, I think that there are opportunities for us to do more. And I really want to tackle those opportunities.
Very nice. So the question was specifically about your background with .NET, but I know we got
Oh,
into contributions. So
mhm.
I just wanted to make sure before we moved on that you didn't have any more contributions that you wanted to mention with the .NET Foundation or community.
So I have a couple of small libraries. I've got a group where I push packages on top of MVVM. The majority of my contributions are these days are maintaining reactive UI. I've contributed to Cake and some other .NET Foundation projects along the way. I've anytime I get a chance to help somebody that's in the foundation, that I can help, I do my best to do so. And even people that aren't in the foundation, Alan Ritchie has been active on Twitter recently as a Xamarin developer. He's written a library that helps a lot of Xamarin concerns around location services, notification services, GPS readings, and he's just asking for help. So I sent some documentation. Now, is that a really big thing? Did I change the face of the project? No, but every little bit helps. And I think that's the big thing that we don't see as consumers, is that every single bit helps. You call out that my documentation is missing a punctuation, that helps. If you submit a pull request to the website saying that this is a dead link, that helps. All of these things help me as the maintainer focus on other things that may add bigger value for the overall community.
Yeah.
So my contributions are really around .NET open source. The libraries that I consume, I do my best to try and give back.
Very nice. So what experience do you have that would lend itself well to being on the board?
I've been a member of several organizations throughout my life cycle. So I've held president positions in organizations. I've not been on a board this big, and I'll candidly say that this is probably the biggest opportunity for me to really get in and give back. But being a Xamarin developer, Xamarin is moving into the core framework, right? We are now, with Maui, we are on the road to Maui, right? And I make this joke because, Maui's the actual destination, right? So on the road to Maui, one of the things, yeah, I'm a
No,
horrible
I love it.
comedian, by
I
the
love
way.
it.
Well, I make bad jokes all the time. On the road to Maui, my hope is that we can shore up some of the things in the Xamarin framework. I've been a Xamarin developer for the past 4 or 5 years. I have seen Xamarin Forms mature and grow, and now we are finally becoming a first-class citizen in .NET. Like, yay, we're a first-class citizen. So what does that mean, right? And is there anybody on the board that cares about the Xamarin community, which has honestly been a redheaded stepchild of the .NET community, because everything you see is Azure and web. And no one really talks about this cross-platform mobile experience that .NET is providing. So I think that as someone that consumes .NET, I've been consuming the .NET framework since 2001. Yeah, I've been consuming the .NET framework for 15 years. I've been active in the open source community for the past 5. I've been a Xamarin developer for the past 5. I think that the experience that I have with working with organizations, as well as the fact that I'm in a kind of a niche position where I kind of speak for people that don't have a voice right now, being in the Xamarin community. I think that that's really where my value add is, because like now that we're moving on this road towards Maui, I'm hoping that we as the Xamarin community can kind of affect how that looks in the .NET framework.
Very nice. So would you say that or maybe something else is your number one focus for the foundation?
Okay, so that's a loaded question, yeah, because I have like a couple of quote unquote number ones, but
We can do top 3. We're we're flexible here.
okay, on my campaign page, one of the things I talked about, I took a slightly different approach. One of the things that I said, what do I want, right? Because I grew up in politics. I really don't like politics. I can't stand when politicians stand up and say, I'm going to do all of these things. Because the reality is I may get it onto the board and find out that I can't do any of those things, and that I've made all of these promises and I basically lied to people. So I won't tell you what I'm going to do. I tell you what I want to see from the foundation. And if I'm on the board, I'm going to be working towards making those things happen. So those things include kind of like an open source relief effort. There's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of projects that are like the recently I was about to start a project, a little mini project on the side for myself. I was like, yeah, I haven't used Nancy in a while. Let me go and use Nancy, and find out Nancy is no longer supported. That's a .NET Foundation open source project that no one, like, I wasn't even like publicized that it was that's being deprecated. And it's just like, I, as somebody in the foundation, didn't know. I, as a maintainer of another project in the foundation, didn't know. I didn't know until I went to the README and found it. So, some type of open source relief where we create like grooming for people like myself. Like I said, I came in green. I had no experience, and they have, and Glenn has been doing a great job of grooming me. Hey, Rodney, that issue that you responded to, you might want to tone it down. Hey, Rodney, that issue that you responded to, you could have answered it better this way. So, simple things like grooming people to take over those technologies so that they don't die, I think is something that the .NET Foundation needs to be responsible for. Another one is going to be like an open source sponsorship program. While I see that GitHub has recently added sponsorships, and that's great. Now we've got developers sponsoring other developers. The reality of it is that these developers work for companies, and these companies are the ones that are benefiting from these projects, not just the developers, right? Like, we make these tools, and the developers are using those tools to help their company advancement. So instead of just developers contributing via GitHub sponsorships, maybe we should look at some level of corporate sponsorship so that we're now allowing corporations to give back, because a lot of corporations don't allow for their developers to contribute to open source with pull requests. They actually have legal concerns around that. Right. So I even if it's not money, even if we work with the legal departments to try and change that, because really what those legal departments are doing is taking away our contributors. Right? Mm-hmm. Because they're .NET developers. They're already .NET developers developing .NET in a production environment. And we don't have, and they're consuming our products, and they're finding our bugs, but they can't contribute back with their time. Mm-hmm. That's something that I think that the .NET Foundation should try. I'm not saying that it's going to do it, but it should try and address.
It'd be a big door to open if it was possible. That'd be neat.
I know it's a big door, and I know these things are are big asks, and that's why I'm not saying that I'm going to do them. These are things that I want. I, as a person in the community, I, as a .NET Foundation member, I, as an open source maintainer, I want these things. So if you're aligned with that, then maybe give me a vote. But otherwise, I would say that it's something that we need to address, because we're going to start to reduce our pool of developers. We're trying to bring new developers in. We're trying to make sure that these projects stay maintained, and that becomes very, very tragic when Nancy, which was a great alternative to Web API, is just no longer supported. And then growing the community. I work on a MVVM framework, and MVVM is the de facto standard right now for how applications are built in the .NET framework. So I'm constantly helping people with their first MVVM questions. Hey, I'm new to .NET. I'm new to MVVM. How do I do these things? So even though they're only coming to my Slack channel for our group, I'm at least getting a touch point with new developers to get them on board. And I think that that's really what we need to do is we need to open up the ability to educate and help with open source documentation so that we can make sure that, because there's no reason why some of these open source projects can't leverage the same technologies and tools that Microsoft is using to generate their brand new Microsoft Docs, which, by the way, is 10 times better than MSDN ever was. So, why aren't those tools available to everyone to make the MVVM experience, the onboarding experience, better for people who don't know?
Well, thank you so much, Rodney. Lots of really neat initiatives, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for coming on and interviewing.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.